Let's talk about flash forwards, or epilogues, in movies and TV shows. This is where, after the main story has been resolved, we get a snippet of the character's future. This can be used to tie up some themes and story beats and leave the viewer feeling like the story is satisfyingly concluded. However, a good epilogue, while used to finish a story, should still leave it somewhat open-ended. Today we're going to talk about two different epilogues, both with notable time jumps and how one is bad and one is good. Our first example is the Harry Potter franchise. The books and the movies follow Harry, who ages from 11 to 17 across the series. In the end, we get a brief flash forward where we see Harry as an adult married to Ginny, dropping off his children at platform 9 3/4. Ron and Hermione are also married, and they're all well into their adult years when the story wraps to a close. Yeah, and this epilogue is a pretty controversial topic among fans. What in the Harry Potter fandom isn't? You're free to disagree with me, but in my opinion, it's pretty bad. The epilogue simply takes place too far into the future, and ruins a lot of the vagueness of an ending. What's great about ending a story at the end of one adventure is that it will always be the start of a new one. But we don't want nor need to see everything that happens in a character's life, and in fact, the more you show us after the ending, the more we lose that magical unpredictability of an unknown future. There's just something special about not knowing everything, and leaving some of the characters' futures to our imagination is oftentimes a more rewarding ending than anything we could put into words. So let's discuss the Harry Potter epilogue. As a conclusion to the series, it doesn't make sense to focus on who Harry marries or how many kids he has, when there are so many more meaningful themes we could have touched on. Focusing on the wife and kids ending for Harry over a magical career or some other aspect of his future life feels like another overglorification of romance, where we put love on a pedestal as the ultimate happy ending over anything else. But that's a subject for another video. First off, the marriages. We get confirmation that Ginny and Harry get married and that Ron and Hermione get married. Cool, I guess? Didn't really need to know that. You could probably guess they were going to end up together based on the rest of the story anyway, and confirming this with a prologue doesn't add anything to the story. Rather, it just lacks in relationships, which unnecessarily takes away more vagueness. Then there's the fact that we see their kids. As a general rule, I just don't like seeing characters' kids, since it always comes off as kind of cheesy to me. I mean, come on, you're telling me Ginny let Harry name one of their children after not one, but two of the sociopath teachers in their school? And seeing Harry's kids feels detached from the rest of the story. It was used as an attempt to create a circular ending of sorts. It starts with Harry going through platform 9 3/4. Now his kids are doing the same. Wow! But this concept could have worked as Harry, overseeing any new batch of Hogwarts kids, without us having to transport ourselves 20 plus years into the future. The epilogue is unnecessarily far into the future. As a teenager, when reading the books, I found the thought of Harry as an adult boring. But even ignoring my child bias, it just doesn't make any conventional sense. This giant gap of time completely severed us from all the conflict and weight that we just read about for 7 books, making it nothing more than a distant memory. This 39-year-old Harry is essentially a different person. He was away from us for so long, it's difficult for us to empathize with him the same way. While he's obviously still Harry, he's a bit more of a stranger now, and the teenage Harry we knew so well is gone, leaving us on the note of a different version of him. The readers are still recovering from the shock of a great war, but put into the shoes of someone who remembers that as a decades-old event. There are so many things the prologue could have shown us. How the wizarding world is recovering after everything that happened, funerals for some of the 47,000 characters that died in the last book, anything really. But a fluff, and they got married and had kids and lived happily ever after, that could have been imagined up easily by anyone wasn't the best choice. The tone, the characters, time period, and themes are just too jarring. So while the prologue may have a few good lines, in the end, the most magical thing Harry Potter could have done is something different than this fairy tale ending. At least they stopped there, right? Thank goodness they didn't go on to make a book about Harry's kids where Voldemort has, a daughter or something. I mean, the only thing as contrived as that would be some sort of sequel series where we learn about an uninteresting romance between, Dumbledore and some random guy mentioned in the last book. Thank goodness none of that happened. Jokes aside, rest in peace, Fantastic Beasts. You had your moments. Now that we've talked about our main bad example of an epilogue, let's talk about our main good example, Disney's The Owl House. Pretty much everything that Harry Potter did wrong, The Owl House did right. First off, the prologue takes place a few years after the events of the main story, and deals with direct fallout from it. We get insight into the career paths the characters are choosing, who is currently dating whom, and what adventures they're going to pursue next. And since it only takes place a few years later, the cast still feel like themselves. This prologue gives us the opportunity to wrap up some storylines and open new ones, without outlining the rest of the characters' lives. For example, we learn Luce is going to pursue every field of study she can, and that there is a whole new magic system for her to explore. Ida is the headmaster at a school of free magic, Amity is passionate about abomination magic, Hunter is making talismans, Willow is playing flyer derby, Gus is a teacher. This shows what the characters are currently pursuing without limiting them to anything. And better yet, since this is a few years after the events, the occurrences and losses of these adventures are still fresh. This is especially felt when Willow and Hunter visit Flapjack's grave, giving us closure. And while the Harry Potter epilogue focuses exclusively on the Golden Trio, the Owl House epilogue gives far more characters attention. The main advantage of the Owl House epilogue is that the characters still have their entire lives ahead of them. This is a beautiful ending to the series, since it is a coming-of-age story. To leave it off at the end of one period of their young life and the beginning of another, with a beautiful future in front of them, is perfect. Ultimately, an epilogue should be a satisfying ending, while also leaving the future open for the characters to have more adventures without us. Now let's talk about a few honorable mentions of character flash-forwards I would like to discuss. While not my choice for Harry Potter, showing characters as adults with their kids can work in the right context. For example, How to Train Your Dragon. After letting the dragons free beforehand, we see well into their future Hiccup and Astrid take their kids to reconnect with Toothless and his family. While structurally similar to the Harry Potter epilogue, this one actually works because it follows up on the rest of the themes and feels like a satisfying conclusion rather than an unnecessary adage. And then there's The Legend of Korra. While this isn't exactly an epilogue, rather a sequel series, the choice to show the gang as adults is not one I'm generally a fan of. In the same vein of Harry Potter, showing the characters as adults, not even just adults in this case, it's full-blown old people, separated us from their younger selves we knew so well. And while we could probably imagine that Zuko would stay as the Fire Lord for his whole life, or that Katara would live in the Southern Water Tribe as the matriarch, seeing them at the ends of their stories is something I never wanted. It strips all room for fictional privacy or leaving anything to the future. What makes me especially sad is learning what members of the gang outlived the others, and seeing them all separated, living out their retirement years without each other in major contact anymore, is a restricting reality. As a rule, unless it's for very specific thematic reasons, don't show me the characters at the end of their lives. I don't want to know the end of their story. I want to know that they will live on in fictional obscurity long after the credits roll. So, that's my take on showing characters after a time jump. What's your opinion? Be respectful and let me know in the comments.